Hello and welcome to Hollywood at Home from Arizona Public Media. I'm Victoria Lucas. Tonight's movie is a quirky little gem you might have missed when it first came out. It's the 1983 culture clash comedy Local Hero, starring Burt Lancaster as the unconventional head of a Texas oil company who sends one of his hotshot executives, played by Peter Riegert, to a remote seaside village in Scotland with orders to buy out the entire town and develop the area for an oil refinery. But things don't go precisely to plan, as the American finds himself enchanted not only by the picturesque community, but also by its endearingly oddball villagers. Scottish writer-director Bill Forsyth had made a splash with his independent coming-of-age film Gregory's Girl, and British producer David Puttnam, who had major success with films like Midnight Run and Chariots of Fire, was eager to work with him. Puttnam told Forsyth, "If you can come up with an offbeat story set in Scotland that includes one or two American characters to attract the Yank audiences, then I can finance it." Well, okay then. Forsyth immediately started to work. What might happen, he wondered, when a small community of notoriously thrifty Scots faces the possibility of immense riches, but at the cost of losing their traditional home? And what might the source of all that money be? Remembering the Beverly Hillbillies and where all that money had come from, he started to adapt that premise into a sort of Scottish prequel set before the oil starts to flow. While crafting the dialogue for the American Petroleum chief, Forsyth happened to read an interview with Burt Lancaster, in which the actor said his one career regret was not doing more comedy. It was a light bulb moment, Forsyth said. "From that point forward, I wrote with him in mind." Of course, a star of Lancaster's caliber and salary would mean adding to the budget, and that might require a miracle. Producer Puttnam was excited about Forsyth's story, his casting idea, and the finished script. At the time, he had a first-look agreement with Warner Brothers and British production company Goldcrest to jointly finance his movies. Goldcrest quickly said yes to fund half of the budget, and when Puttnam presented the script to Warner executives, he thought it would be a slam dunk. But Warner's passed on the project, not eager to entrust the movie to a relatively unknown director with only one minor hit, and unimpressed by a star they considered well past his prime. Without Warner's, half the budget was missing, and Puttnam's hope for immediate funding was gone. But then, right on cue, came the miracle. At that year's BAFTA Awards, they're the British equivalent of the Oscars, David Puttnam won the Best Picture Award for Chariots of Fire, and Burt Lancaster was the presenter. It was the first time they'd met. As Puttnam later remembered, the most extraordinary thing happened. As I was walking back to my table with my award in hand, I passed the Goldcrest table. One of their executives stopped me for congratulations and asked, "Do you still want to do Local Hero?" "Yes, we do," I gulped. And he said, "Well, you've got the rest of the money. Congratulations again." We shook hands. I walked on air back to my table, and the next morning, our entire budget was in the bank. Now, Lancaster was still in London, conveniently, so we straightway sent him the script. He read it, loved his idiosyncratic character, and quickly signed on. With financing and a big-name star on board, director Forsythe began casting the remaining roles. He chose New York actor Peter Riegert as the young oil executive and a number of experienced Scottish character actors as the villagers. To play Riegert's gawky young local assistant, he chose Peter Capaldi, a 23-year-old stand-up comedian from Glasgow. Capaldi had never been in a movie before, and he laughingly remembered his first day on the set. After he had ruined several takes with his larger-than-life reactions, the director took him aside and earnestly begged him, "Please, Peter, just don't act." Capaldi, by the way, has gone on to a distinguished acting career, perhaps best known to American audiences as Doctor Who from 2013 to 2017. Besides the actors, of course, the most important piece of casting in the film was the fictional town of Furness. It needed to be a picture-perfect village with a beach both idyllic and pristine. But the filmmakers couldn't find such a place. So they ended up shooting the village in the tiny port of Penang and the beach almost 100 miles away. Then, to make the visual connection, a plywood church exterior was built at the end of the beach to match the real church in the faraway village. Filming began in the spring of 1983. By all accounts, it was a wonderful shoot. Producer Putnam later said, "It was as if we'd all gone on holiday and someone had thought to bring a movie camera." Peter Capaldi remembered, "We Scots could hardly believe that this Hollywood star was going to appear in our midst. But when he did, he had such charm and openness that people just fell all over themselves to be around him." Still, director Forsythe initially worried whether Burt Lancaster, with decades of experience, would accept him as a fairly new filmmaker. In the end, he needn't have worried. Lancaster later said that he thoroughly enjoyed the experience, with his only problem being the Scottish accents of the cast and crew who, as he once joked, speak no known language. And ironically, while the production designer and his construction crew had struggled mightily against freezing rain and high winds to build the church set near the beach, the weather during the shoot turned so mild and sunny that Forsythe worried some of the shots of the beach looked more like the Bahamas than Scotland. If you think the movie is beautifully filmed, that's because the cinematographer was the famed Chris Menzies, who went on to be nominated for 4 Oscars, winning 2 for The Killing Fields and The Mission. And if you like the musical score, it's by first-time film composer Mark Knopfler, the longtime singer, songwriter, and lead guitarist for the rock group Dire Straits. Despite being Scottish himself, Knopfler spent time on the set during filming, getting the feel of the place, talking to the locals, and picking up the atmosphere to make the score as authentic as possible. The New York Times review for Local Hero concluded with, "Genuine fairy tales are rare, and so is filmmaking that is thoroughly original. This movie is both." So now please sit back, perhaps with a wee dram, and enjoy this magical, delightful comedy. From 1984, it's Local Hero.